He says, I'm the one who's sending you the birds because you keep sending birds that remind you of your dad.
Oh my gosh.
Where are you guys from?
Dallas.
Oh, good. Well, first of all, I'm so glad that you guys are here. And right away, there's a couple different souls that I'm seeing that are on the other side. Well, first of all, who's this with you? Is this your mother?
This is my mom, who is logged in over there on the other computer, but came over here. So yeah.
That's all right. Listen, it doesn't matter. Your loved ones are together,
Yeah.
whether or not you get separate tickets or not. So first of all, your father passed.
Yeah.
Because right away, he's coming through. So that was your husband?
My ex-husband.
Okay, well, listen, no wonder why they're logged in on separate computers. I can't help that he was your ex, all right? He's here. Because right away, he kept saying to me, he was saying to me, Matt, I'm her father. And he was coming through from the side, letting me know that he's here. And more importantly, that first of all, your dad says to me, not only is he with you every day, but he sees that you kept clothes of his. Your dad is talking about some shirts that you kept in memory of him. Is that correct?
We sent 2 boxes of his shirts to someone I know and made a quilt out of them.
Perfect. Because he's acknowledging Matt. He goes, I'm with her when she's got my shirts, and he's acknowledging and showing me all the shirts that you kept of your dad's. And I got to tell you something. He's coming through from the other side, and your dad is funny when I'm connected with him because he was a no-nonsense type of guy when I'm connecting with him. And first of all, I got to tell you, he's telling me, he goes, Matt, he goes, my wife over there, he goes, she's still pissed at me. He tells me. He says, so she's trying to ignore me. He goes, but I got to call the elephant out in the room. He says, because she's still upset with me.
I'm trying to do better.
Yes.
Listen, he goes to me, he says to me, listen, he goes, can you please tell her to stop blaming me for everything? He says, because she even blames me in the afterlife, he tells me, and he's laughing about this on the other side.
Oh my God.
He goes, you know, Matt, he goes, she may have talked shit about me here in this world. He goes, but I got to be honest. He goes, I didn't say anything about her. He goes, when people used to ask me about my ex, I used to say she was a good woman. She was a good woman.
That's absolutely true.
I know, he tells me. He goes, but let me tell you something. He goes, she had some choice words for me. He goes, and I can see it all in heaven. And he's laughing about this.
I apologize.
Well, listen, you don't have to apologize to me, but I got to tell you something.
I apologize to him.
Well, listen, I got to talk to you for a minute because do you know he's coming through for you because there's things that he needs to settle. And he says to me, Matt, she had every right to call me what she did because the one reason why you were upset with him wasn't because of what happened between you and between him. He tells me that you were upset because of the way that he treated your daughter.
Right.
Because you feel as though that he should have been there more in her life. And he tells me that. He says to me, you were so sick of him making excuses because when your loved ones go to the other side, they can rewind time. And he goes, Matt, he goes, I might be coming through. He says, all fun and laughs. He goes, but when I was here in this world, he goes, I wasn't a great dad and I know that.
Right.
He says, I put myself first. He says, when really I should have put my daughter first. And your dad says to me that he wants you to know that now. Because your father talks about being in another relationship. And he tells me that this woman that he was with, completely took over his life. His world became that world instead of being in connection with you. Do you understand that?
Okay.
You're telling me okay, but your dad tells me that you know what he's talking about because I see him going with this woman and I see that her family became his family. He shows me that, he was all connected, that he was so focused on that relationship that there were times when you were missing him within your life.
Yeah, my teenage years, yeah.
So know that your dad says to me, those are years that I wish that I could have gotten back because he's showing me visions of your mom being there for you at birthday celebrations, things, and your dad not being there. And he says to me, Matt, he says, I felt like she never needed me back then. That's why I wasn't there. Yeah. He says, because I got to be honest with you, your dad's telling me that you have an amazing mother. And that's why he never talked about you because he tells me that you were always there for your daughter every single step of the way. You were her backbone, you were her support. And your dad even tells me now, he goes, Matt, if there's one thing that my daughter got lucky with, he's like, it's that she's lucky that I passed and not her mom, that I'm the one who went first. He says, because if everything ever happened to her mom, she would be lost. Now, I know that at the end of life that you and your dad became very close because he's acknowledging that to me. But still, your mom is your mom. And he said to me, Matt, he goes, I could have never been, he says, the parent that her mother has been to them. And I got to tell you something, if there's one thing that your ex-husband never has regretted, he says, I've never regretted, he says, marrying you and having children with you. That's what he's telling me. Because he's bringing that through.
Wow.
But I gotta tell you something as well. He knows where he went wrong. And unfortunately, he tells me that he let other people get in between you and between him. He says, I listen to other people. I let other people give advice to me that, that didn't care about me. And he's showing me family members getting in between you and between him. That's on his side. Do you understand that?
Right.
He says, that's what caused us to break up. He says to me that for years, he missed out on the greatest thing that happened to him. And that was you, his daughter. So do you know that your dad says to me that he wants to thank you for the way that you got so close to him before he died? Because you allowed him to reconnect and you allowed him to relive all of those years that he missed out on because of his ways.
Wow.
And
yeah, we were very close.
Your dad says to me, that was the best thing that happened to me. He says, was me and you with one another. Because he even tells me back before he had died, you and him taking car rides with one another. We would just take rides in the car with one another. And I don't know if you went to go get coffee, because your dad doesn't even show me where you went, which means that he didn't care about it. He just cared about spending that time with you.
Yeah, he would just say, hey, what are you doing? Are you busy? No. Well, all right, I'm just going to come over and hang out. And then we'd go do whatever. Yeah.
So no, it's his way of bringing that through. And your dad says to me, Matt, he says, I thank God every day. He goes, I got to build a whole new connection with my daughter. He says, and I formed a love with you in the years before I passed that I've never felt with anybody else. He says, so I never got to tell you, because we never talked about the past when I was alive, he tells me. But he's taken that opportunity to say that he does regret it. And your dad wants to let you know that in heaven, he knows what a special person that you are. He says to me, though, that you are a workaholic. He tells me that you never stop working when I'm connecting with him. So
I had to stop a couple years ago, but yeah, I worked a lot.
He remembers that when I'm connecting with him, because he's bringing that through when I'm speaking. And what was the connection? Your dad tells me in my ear that he thought you were going to start your own business, or that he thought you were going to work for yourself.
Yeah, I thought about starting a catering business.
Your father says to me, don't put that dream on hold. Don't put that dream on hold. And when you're telling me catering, but your dad's showing me sweets. Did you make cupcakes? What's the connection with cupcakes or baking?
I made cakes I did do that a little bit on the side. Yeah.
Your father remembers that, because he says, Matt, she used to bring me over these cupcakes, he's telling me. So know that it's his way of acknowledging that, there's still room in the universe for you to make those dreams come true. And your dad hasn't given up on that with you. He says, every day that goes by, he says, please know that I'm okay. Please know that I'm there and with you. And more importantly, he says, I'm the one who's sending you the birds, because you keep seeing birds that remind you of your dad.
Oh my gosh.
I started seeing them, the cardinals, on my walks every day right after he passed.
And then you saw all these out
and
there.
I see them, they come right out this window in the office. And I was like, I don't know if I never noticed them before. I want to think it's Dad.
It's him. He's acknowledging that. And you know what? Your dad also wants to thank you for being there for his final moments as well.
I was there when he passed.
He shows me. I saw you holding your dad's hands, and you actually felt his soul leave the room, he tells me. So he tells me that when he died, you felt his soul move through you. And when that happened, he says, Matt, he goes, it was amazing. He says, because I was able to realize that I could come back and visit my daughter at any time.